Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of An Action. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Army of the Damned, which is my second ever feature film. And it was actually in production 9 years ago tonight. We
Wow.
were on the set filming. So it's going to be a fun look back. We're going to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and really do a full dissection of Army of the Damned. Mike, how the hell are you? How has your week been? It's good to see you again. We're filming a little bit later than usual tonight. I heard you were
Yeah.
traveling. Were you on travel?
Today I was traveling back from Orlando, which was back from Fort Myers Beach Film Festival. I have my script also got accepted into the screenplay competition, and I saw some really good documentaries. One you would probably like about a baseball player, high school kid who was born without hands and born without feet, like basically no legs beneath the knee, and somehow this kid is playing high school baseball as a designated hitter. Is the
Wow.
2 minute is the 2 sentence version of Landis, I think it was called, but the filmmaker was there. That won best documentary, and it was a good time. And
That's cool.
yeah,
Not to go
so
down a baseball rabbit hole, but I've always wanted to make a feature film biopic about Jim Abbott, the famous baseball player for the Angels and the Yankees. Played for a few teams, but he was able to pitch in the major leagues with one hand, on
wow,
his glove hand, and actually pitched a no hitter in the majors. So
that's awesome.
if you're listening to me, movie gods, someday we'll make the Jim Abbott movie. Um, but for now, we got some other stuff to talk about. Speaking of movies, I locked a movie this week. I'm very excited. Johnny and Clyde is officially picture locked. If you don't know what picture locked means, well, basically what that is it means that there will be no more edits made to the film. The
Right.
film that is currently there is, as they say, in the can. It is done. It is cut. It's been processed. We will not shoot anymore. We will not change a stitch of editing. It is officially ready to move on to the other many different stages of post production. We still have to colorize it. We still have to work on all the visual effects, which there are plenty of them in this movie.
Yes.
But it's nice to know that Redbox has watched the movie. They've given it the thumbs up, and we can kind of walk away now. And really, the fun stuff goes. My editor kind of came up with this one. She said, "Now you get to decorate the Christmas tree." You know, it's
Right.
kind of like you went through the work like chopping the tree down and dragging it through the woods, and you baled it, you put it on top of your car, you drove it to your house, you got it all set up. It's all right, great. We let it sit. Let's put some ornaments on this thing and make it look beautiful. So that's where we're at now. I'm excited to be finished, and it's kind of
You've
fun
got
to go
some big
full circle.
stars in this one. You've got Megan Fox is in this one in a different role for her. And who are some of the other name talents? You had a really awesome cast for this Johnny and Clyde movie.
Yeah, this was really a great cast. You mentioned Megan Fox. She was unbelievable to work with. Really brought this dark and twisted, fun character to the table that I can't wait for people to see. But Tyson Ritter was phenomenal in this movie. It was really great to work with him for the first time. Armin Garrow was terrific. Brett Azar. There's just from top to bottom. There's a lot of just really great cast members in this one. Um, we're excited for it. We can't wait. But for now, it's kind of fun because this was we shot Johnny and Clyde back in, I'd say, like
October.
October of
Yeah,
2021.
because I came up for
And
that. That was fun.
yes, Mike plays a cool part in it. A lot of great. It's a great cast. Robert Lasardo.
Who
We
was
all
my
know
scene
Robert
partner?
Lasardo.
The
You were in
big
the
guy?
movie with Sean Ringgold.
Sean Ringo. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a star-studded cast. But it's kind of interesting, Mike, because like Johnny and Clyde is sort of a dark comedy, right? It's one
Yes.
of these movies that's certainly got its violence and its edge and the dialogue that's sharp and kind of hits you. It's cutting, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's kind of it's a dark comedy. It's meant to be funny. It's
Right.
intentionally fun. It's kind of interesting because we're going to be talking about Army of the Damned tonight, which obviously these two movies are very different. This was my second movie. It had an incredibly low budget. We're going to get into all that. But the essence of the film was kind of this like dark comedy, almost borderline campy in the intent, in the grand sense of the word campy for good natured film fun. Um, there are some kind of similarities in the tone.
Right.
Obviously, they're two different movies, but it's kind of interesting that we're talking about Army of the Damned tonight, um, after Lock and Picture on Johnny and Clyde. So we're gonna get into it, Mike. Let's get
Good.
right back to the spring of 2013. Where were
Okay.
you? That's where we're headed.
Well, you know what? I can't remember where I was, but
Well,
what,
it was more of a rhetorical question,
what,
brother.
what if I could, I'm jump in with just people can actually see this movie, Army of the Damned. So perhaps they said, where can you see film, Tommy?
Yeah, that's right. Army of the Damned is out there right now. If you go on YouTube and you just punch it in, there's a service called, is it Popcorn Flicks? I think it is.
I think it was Popcorn Flicks. Yeah, I
Yeah,
watched it
it's
last night
Popcorn
on there.
Flicks. Yeah, and it's basically like, a streaming service that's also a part of YouTube in a sense. And it's a great chance that, you can watch it for free.
Yeah,
Dial in Army of the Damned and you'll see it. It's the full feature Popcorn Flex. You don't have to pay anything. You can watch it for
it
free.
was
And
unedited. There was no censorship, as far as I could tell. All the
yep.
music
So
was there. All the gore. Yep.
full warning, if you're around the little ones, you might want to have them skip out on this one. There's a little bit of violence. There's some graphic language. Might be some nudity in there. It's not suitable for children. We get that out there right off the bat. But yes, Army of the Damned is my second movie, and it kind of all comes from like, what do you want to do as soon as you make one movie? It's kind of like getting a tattoo, although I don't
Right.
have any tattoos. Mike, you have tattoos. Maybe you could
Yeah, I've
verify
got enough
this.
for
They
both
say
of you.
that like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
he's got a couple.
Once you get,
They
yeah,
say
yeah.
that like once you get one tattoo, like you immediately
Right.
want to get another tattoo.
Yeah.
Well, once you make one feature film, you immediately want to make another one, because inevitably you have some stumbles and you think of all these different things you could do differently and how can you make it right. I had just made a movie called Self Storage, which we're going to talk about eventually, because guess what? This summer's the 10-year anniversary. And that was my first movie. And to be honest with you, it wasn't the best movie in the world. It wasn't the worst movie, but I learned a lot on that one. And I was afraid, like, well, when am I going to get to make another one? Like, how am
Right.
I going to convince Chad, who at the time, it's kind of fun because he still is my producing partner, but at the time was like giving this young kid a shot to kind of make his movie and do his thing. And Self Storage, although we finished the movie and it was a success and, nothing bad happened, it wasn't a major botch job, but it wasn't this big hit.
Right.
Why would he want to give me another shot at the plate? Like, what am I going to do? So I kind of had to like think about like what would I do to position this, and I kind of went back to the well with the whole like, all right, if I could think of a script that has like a handful of actors and takes place in one location and is kind of in that 90-page range. A lot of the stuff we talked about on episode 2 about your making that first draft of your first movie. If I can come up with another idea like that, maybe he'll get excited. And sure enough, we're premiering Self Storage and promoting it at a lot of horror conventions. And although the movie wasn't amazing, it gave me an opportunity to rub shoulders with a lot of different people at these horror conventions. And I got to meet people like Tony Todd. And, obviously I had worked with Michael Berryman. And it was one of these things where we were at this convention and Chad Verdi had this light bulb kind of moment. The Expendables had just come out, Stallone's
Stallone
famous action
feature.
movies.
Stallone, Dolph
And
Lundgren, etc.
yeah, and Mike, what's the big thing about the Expendables? What's the cool part about it?
An all-star showcase who were 15 years earlier, but some of them were still pretty big, and kind of like a bunch of big names working together as a team. And I think they made 3 of those movies, if I'm not mistaken. I think Ronda Rousey got to be in them eventually, and like I said, Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, so basically, Chad had the idea to, well, Expendables is hot right now. What if we make an Expendables of horror? I'll never
Right.
forget, like, that was his quote. Like, could we make like an Expendables of horror where we cast, three or four of these like notable names that are kind of icons in the genre and put them all together in this battle? And I just started thinking right away, and I had to kind of go back to what I had at my fingertips, my disposal.
Right.
And I knew that I could kind of like base this one program, this one movie, this one show on one location, and that location would be my parents' house. Um,
Yeah.
which, they've always been very supportive of my career. But this was going to be
And
kind of
just
a
push that
big,
envelope.
yeah, this was going to be a big one because, you know,
Right.
not only did I have to shoot the movie there, but it was gonna be a horror movie. It was gonna have a lot of violence. It was gonna have a lot of blood and guts. And, oh, yeah, part of the storyline that I had concocted was that this house was under construction. So it was also we were gonna turn my parents' beautiful house into a construction site, basically.
Right.
Um, and on top of that, remember, we're saving money. Um, I asked if it would be okay if, the majority of the crew also stayed at the house. So we've got probably, with no fabrication, 8 or 9 people staying at the house, and they have to go bye-bye. They're out of there. Luckily, they
Right.
have a
Your
beach
parents, you
house
mean?
at the time.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Your
said,
folks.
"Mom, Dad, like you can't be around for this. Like this isn't.
Right.
You're not gonna want to see this." Um, So they gladly, believe it or not, were like, "Okay, you guys have insurance, right? Yeah, okay, everything's covered," which we did.
Okay.
And there we go. I kind of, again, this was all part of my pitch to like, I didn't make a smash hit for my first movie. My rookie season wasn't amazing,
It
so it's
wasn't
one of those things.
Tarantino with Reservoir Dogs or whatever. Yeah.
No, it was a little bit of a mini, maybe a mini stumble out of the gate, and I just wanted this to be a no brainer for Chad, my producer, where he everything just made so much sense. Like, how could he not greenlight this movie? So there I was. I had this script, and at the time, I was watching like I don't know why, but I was watching a ton of these like crime show, like true crime stuff, which is very hot now. But like 9 years ago, true crime was like kind of new in terms of like getting to be hot. Obviously, like shows like Dateline have been out forever, but a lot of these like different like investigation discovery type shows were like kind of
Right.
brand new. And I was always like fascinated by the the police procedure and like how the cops approach murder scenes and the detective work that goes into all of that. So I was watching a lot of that kind of stuff, and I said, well, what if we combined a kind of like a detective story where these cops in a small town stumble upon this vicious murder scene, and it's like, whoa, what the fuck? This does not happen in this town. What if we combine that with, by the way, there also happens to be, remember, 10 years ago, about reality shows were still very much a thing. Although,
Yes.
there's actually coming back a little bit now. But 10 years ago was like kind of the tail end of the peak of the reality show era.
Yes. Right. End of
So I said to myself,
Survivor and everything else.
yeah, that stuff was all pretty much new and current and hip. So I said, all right, let's take the kind of police procedural stuff, combine it with a reality show because I was watching a lot of them anyway. So I came up with this fake cops type TV show called The Force, like the police force. So we've got the force, they're following this group and basically discover a murder. And of course, you got to flip it on its side story wise. Well, let's throw in a zombie storyline. And when I say zombie, that's probably unfair because I will get into this. They're not truly zombies, they're more like demons.
Right.
But these characters have the qualities of a zombie in the sense that there's basically a demonic spirit that gets released within this haunted house, if you will. And if you get killed by one of the demons, you in essence turn into one of the demons. So that's why I say zombies. That's kind of like the
Right.
zombie quality. These demons can kind of multiply as they kill. The army of the damned. That's why we called it that. Gets stronger and builds, and eventually maybe the whole world would be this army of
If they
demons.
if they get you, then you're on their side, the army of the damn side. Like you get like a gang or something. You get initiated in by violence. So yeah,
You join the army, brother.
right.
So that was kind of the premise. So I got into it, and the final kind of like cherry on top to make this movie like just impossible to say no to as much as I could was, look, I want to make this film so bad. It means so much to me to kind of like have my second opportunity. And keep in mind, this is literally like we filmed Self Storage in July of 2012, and this is May of 2013. So like it hadn't even been a year,
Wow.
which in film years, to direct two movies inside of a 12-month span when you're kind of first starting out, that's a great opportunity. So I was really trying to like fight for that opportunity to get after it again.
Right.
So the final kind of caveat on my end was, well, look, if we make this movie, I will take my director's fee and put it back in the movie. Like I will reinvest my fee into the film. Did not draw a dime to direct Army of the Damned. I put it all back into the movie.
Right.
I just wanted to make this movie so bad, and I wanted it to have all the bells and whistles. I figured at the time, like, well, what's the difference if I have a little extra money right now? I was still relatively young at the time. It was more about like making a movie that mattered and that got attention.
Every
I don't
dollar counts when you're
every dollar
when you're on
counts.
a
Look,
short budget. Yeah.
probably a whole other conversation. I don't know if I recommend doing that all the time, but in the
Right.
beginning when you're first starting out, like it is true. Like you are kind of better off having a better quality production that's going to be your calling card than a chunk of money that you probably would blow at some point. And what really matters, it's the
Right.
art we're creating, damn it.
Sure.
So I eventually, basically, I got to writing. Chad really enjoyed the pitch. He liked the storyline, and there you go. The big thing is, it's not just about having a script that people like. You have to have actors that like it. Already had a relationship with Michael Berryman, so that was kind of easy. He was like one of our first pieces of casting.
Right.
Um, Michael Berryman is, one of these kind of legends of the horror genre. Um, he's been in so many films. The original
Is
Hills
it the
Have
hills?
Eyes.
Yeah, the hills have eyes. Yeah.
He's in the original Hills Have Eyes, and he's just had an incredible, long, kind of storied career. So to get him in the movie kind of gave the film instant credibility in that horror genre. And like, okay, suddenly we got one piece of the puzzle. And you'll hear this a lot, and it's very true. When it comes to casting, there is like a domino effect that happens where like sometimes it can be tricky until you get that one piece of casting, and then actors they'll look on IMDb and they'll be like, oh, so and so's in this movie. All right. And it sounds funny, but it's like the context is almost the subtext is almost like, well, hey, if Berryman's doing it, it's got to be decent. It can't be that bad, right? It's got to be a
Right.
good movie. So Berryman joined on, and then so again, I didn't have a big budget on this one, right? And I knew that we were shooting in I think we had 15 days to shoot this movie. The lead, the character Bridge, was in the whole movie, which is called run of the show. If an actor's run of the show, you'll hear that term thrown around a lot. That means that you need to book them. Like if the movie's shooting in the month of May, you better book them for the whole month of May because you are
Right.
going to need them. Maybe not every day, but just about every day to the point where they cannot go home. You got to have them there the whole time. Well, when you got somebody here the whole time, which is like 3 or 4 weeks, it's a lot of money. It's very expensive. There are all kinds of little uh, fringe fees that people don't think about. Lodging. You got to get them a rental car. There's a lot of things through SAG that you got to cover, like per diem. Um, so I knew that again, I wasn't super hands-on with the budget. That wasn't really my kind of area of expertise at the time, and it still really isn't. But at the time when I was making this, I realized that whoever played bridge, I wouldn't be able to get a star, like a name actor. I should say,
Traditional
a
name
traditional
actor.
lead actor.
Yeah.
I did get a star though.
Right.
I went out to a different type of star. I went out to a rock star rather
Yes.
than a movie star. So let me back that up just because I don't want to insult anyone because Sully Erna is very much a star. But like I knew I couldn't get a movie star for the whole run of the show. I wouldn't be able to afford that on this
Matthew
budget.
McConaughey or whoever. Right. Yeah.
It wasn't happening.
Yeah.
But I knew that Sully Erna had an interest in acting. And I knew that,
Lead singer of Godsmack.
yeah, just to back that up, Sully Erna is the lead singer of Godsmack.
Which
Very,
had 4 or 5 number one hits or something like that.
yeah, lots of number one hits, lots of songs that like we've all heard before, the kind of
Yes.
music that they play at stadiums, like you'll be watching a UFC fight and you'll hear like a Godsmack song. Mike and I aren't about to sing them for you or go through their entire discography, but
Yeah.
Godsmack is one of those bands that have really stood the test of time. They've been performing for, a couple decades and they still have a big following. And I knew that Sully wanted an opportunity to do more than just be in his band. I knew that he's a true artist, Sully Erna, and he really wanted to get an opportunity to get in front of the camera. We had worked together on a project literally like 2 or 3 years prior to that when I was just an intern. And he met me like a couple times. We worked on this project with a mutual filmmaker. And like I said, I was basically like a production assistant. But for whatever reason, we kind of hit it off. And I don't know, like I've always had a tendency to like, there's a famous line in the movie Ocean's 11, the Soderbergh Ocean's 11, which I really love. But he says, one of the characters says, be funny, but don't make them laugh. And I feel like I've always been like funny, but not enough to be like, what that basically means is be funny, but don't make them laugh means be, friendly and light enough where a person will enjoy your company, but you're not a distraction. It's not like you're being so fucking funny that you need the attention at all times.
You're not the court jester. You're one
No,
of the
you're not,
boys type of
yeah,
thing.
you're not being a clown, but you're just being one of the guys, and you're you're just making them laugh, but it's not you get what I'm saying. Be
Yeah, I
funny, but
get it.
don't make them laugh. So basically, I just hit it off with him, and I wrote him this what was really like my first director's email, big boy email to a star where I'm typing and I'm like, Sully, you probably don't remember me, but a few years ago we worked on this project in Providence, Rhode Island. I have this part that I think would be really great for you. It's a kind of a high octane Expendables of horror. I used Chad's line. And I said, you'd be playing an undercover, edgy city cop who's turned country cop in a small town. What do you think? I sent send on the email, not thinking that he'd really ever even get back to me. I was shocked I still had his email. The only reason I remember it was because it was, I'm not going to say it now, but I just remembered his email for some reason. I'm not like I didn't save it. This was all like up here
In your brain.
So
Wow.
I didn't even know if this was still his email address. It had been a few years. So I shot it out into the world. What do I have to lose? And sure enough, like 20 minutes later, I get a message back. Hey Tommy, I remember you. And I was like, oh shit. Okay, well, great. He says, that sounds cool, man. I really love the idea of, being the lead in a film. Right now, a lot of the only options I've been getting are like kind of little day player spots and things like that. And like, I play like the tattooed guy who like yells in one scene and I'm out. Like, I would love to have an opportunity to like really play a part. But are you sure you see me playing a cop? Like, I've never really got that. I got tattoos all over me. I'm kind of a edgy rock star. Like, what? You want me to play a cop? And then I explained to him, well, no, this isn't just a cop. He's like an edgy guy. He used to do murder. He used to, investigate murders in the city. But his father passed away, and he came home to be with his dad, and kind of transferred. His dad died, and he said, "You know what? I'm going to take over the sheriffship. Is that even a word? Sheriffship of this town,
Sheriffhood. Yeah.
the sheriffhood of this town." So that's kind of the setup. And you know what? Sully read the script. He saw Self Storage, the trailer, not the full movie, which is kind of fun. Like I don't think he saw the full movie, but I remember sending him just the trailer, like kind of strategically. Because let's
Right.
face it, guys, like the trailer, no matter what movie, for the most part, like the trailer is always going to be better than the movie because you're only putting out the best 90 seconds you got. Like it better be good.
Right.
So I sent him the trailer, and he was basically like, "Hey, this is fucked up shit. I like it. This is my kind of stuff." So he kind of liked the visuals that I was messing with. And he, like literally like a week after going back and forth through some emails and maybe one phone call, he was in, and he said, "I'm doing it." And then I remember going back to Chad and being like, "I got Sally Erna, Godsmack, big band." Chad immediately saw the importance of, hey, all of a sudden there's millions of Godsmack fans that
Yes.
normally wouldn't give a shit about my movie that are now going to watch my movie. So it was kind of like, we didn't invent this concept, but
Right.
a lot of times you'll see a casting scenario where you'll go outside of the box from your traditional movie star and cast a cool athlete or a cool rock star, or whatever. Name that other facet
Opinion
of
of the time.
Yeah, name that other facet of entertainment. Hey, here's a good one for you. There used to be a guy named The Rock that was just a wrestler. And at one time, some producer probably said, "Hey, it'd be a good idea to cast this Rock guy because then we'd get a bunch of wrestling fans to watch."
Right.
Now he's the biggest fucking movie star in the galaxy.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, like, that formula is very effective, and we tried to utilize it. So now we got Michael Berryman, we got Sully Erna, and Chad just kind of like starts building this momentum and creating this really cool package. Uh, Joey Fatone was next to kind of
He
join
was the
the
new kids
fun.
on the block, Joey.
Mike, I'm going to strike the record and pretend you didn't say that.
Oh,
You've got your boy
I meant
bands
the next
mixed up.
generation. The next generation.
Mm-hmm.
My
They
apologies,
were
Joey.
that's okay. He was in NSYNC.
That's right. Which is
Boy
actually
band fans,
bigger than New Kids on
they
the Block.
they were a big deal. I mean, there's a guy, I don't know, maybe you've heard of him, Justin Timberlake,
Yeah,
who
I've
was in
heard a
the
little
group.
something about that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a couple hits. So Joey Fatone was kind of like the every group, every music group, whether it's the Beatles or whatever, has like the funny one. And
Yeah.
Joey was like the funny one
He was the
of the
Ringo.
NSYNC group.
He
He
was
was
the
the Ringo.
Ringo of NSYNC. Yeah.
Exactly. So Joey's just like this very lovable, funny guy who Chad had a relationship with because he was in the movie Incubus, which is Chad's very first movie, and also happened to be my first time as an actor in a movie in front of the camera. And Joey and I just also like hit it off on set. I remember like just like him and I really vibe. We're both Italian guys. He grew up in Florida, but
Right.
he spent like the first like I think 7, 10, whatever years of his life in the New York area. Italian Americans from the Northeast. We all kind of speak the same language. We talk with our hands. It's great
Sure.
stuff. We vibed out. So I already knew Joey. And the one thing that, like, we all know he's the funny one,
Yeah.
but you don't realize just like how funny he is until you like really spend time with him. He's got a great sense of humor, sharp fucking timing, and he can like really just make a joke work, even when there's really not a joke there. Like I really do believe that Joey probably could have been like a stand-up comedian if, in a different life. He's one of those guys that like probably would have succeeded at like whatever he tried, kind of a thing, because he's got
He's
such a great personality.
he's got a funny delivery, is how I would put it. Like just in his role in this movie in particular, he's the cameraman for the reality show, right? He's kind of got he's the funny friend support guy, and he does very well in that role, I think.
Yeah, he does, and he can just do a lot of things. And we knew that he was also easy to work with. He's not a diva, despite being a pretty famous guy. So we had Joey locked in, and he's, like Mike said, playing that comic relief character. And then once we got it together, we said, you know what? We got to add a little bit of like, kind of like, again, this is the Expendables of horror. We got to kind of like add a little bit of that like horror pop to it. And finally, the script got in the hands of Tony Todd himself,
Yes.
aka the Candyman.
The Candyman.
I think everybody knows that Tony Todd is one of these guys. I mean, like I love his performance in The Rock. He's just like one of those guys that you see him and you're like, oh, I love that guy. He just gives you that like kind of. There are certain actors that, you know, especially like when you're younger and you're just watching TV or you're flipping through the channels, whatever it is, you might not even like always know the actor's name, but like when you just see an actor, they give you like that fuzzy feeling like, oh, if this person's in the movie, it's gonna be a good movie. I'm in for something good. Tony Todd's one of those guys. Like almost any movie you see him in, he's gonna make it better. So I
And
love
he's a
Tony
household
Todd.
name. Household
Yeah,
name
and he's a
because of the
household name. Oh my God, it's the Candyman. Say his name. What is it? 3 times.
Yeah, 3
That was
times.
nice.
Well, that's a Mandela effect. If you say it 3 times or 5 times, I think it's 3, but now it's 5. But that's a beautiful action figure, isn't it?
It is a really nice Tony Todd figure. Maybe we can arrange Tony to sign that for you, buddy.
That'd be great. I'm a big fan of the Candyman.
So there you go. Like Mike just showed it to you. That goes to show you the significance of having Tony Todd in your movie. The guy's got friggin' action figures, all right?
Yes.
Like we're talking about a very notable name in the genre.
Right.
So we were very happy to get Tony Todd's interest. He didn't definitely sign on yet, but he was willing to read the script. So I remember we had our first conversation about the script, and he was playing this role where a little bit behind the curtain. Look, when you got someone like Tony Todd on set, they're gonna draw a certain amount of this stuff, you know, the money.
Yes.
They make a good living to do this. They're very fucking talented, and guess what? They deserve every penny because they add a tremendous amount of value to your movie. So I could only afford him for a few days, and there was this role for this like badass, no bullshit, old school SWAT command leader, who kind of shows up and kind of is like, what? There are demons in this house? Yeah, well, I eat demons for breakfast, kind of character. And it was awesome. So he read the dialogue, and this was one of the coolest things ever because I'm a big video game geek. I love Call of Duty, and I had just been playing Call of Duty, this version. I forget which one it is, but Tony Todd's a character in the fucking video game.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Like he's literally a character in the video game. And he's badass. He's old school. He's got this cool dialogue. So he read the script, and we get on the phone. He goes, "Yeah, man, I read the script. It's like I like the character. I like the dialogue a lot." And I think he said something like, "Reminds me of that video game shit I just did." And I was like,
that I was just
mind,
playing.
I'm like, he's talking about Call of Duty. And he's comparing my script to Call of Duty, like the game I play. This is so fucking cool. I'm like fanboying out hardcore,
Right.
trying to keep my composure on the phone with them. And then he goes on to tell me, like, he's like, you guys are in Providence, right? I'm like, yeah, Providence, Rhode Island. He goes, you know, I spent a lot of time in Providence. I'm like, get out of here. When? Sure enough, Tony Todd basically like learned how to become an actor, learned all of his chops at the Trinity Repertory Theater in Providence, Rhode Island.
Washington Street.
Yep. And Mike, tell us a little bit about Trinity, what it means to Rhode Island and even New England as a regional theater.
Yeah, I want to say they've been in business for 50, 60 years at the least, but Trinity Repertory Company, or Trinity Rep as it's abbreviated, basically they do original plays. Like if you want to see the latest Broadway musical, you go up the street to Providence Performing Arts Center. But if you want to see actors that are actually residents of Rhode Island, residents of Providence for the most part, who've trained for years at their craft, and for the most part, with the exception of A Christmas Carol, which is their, yearly Christmas special annual event. They do usually about 7 original plays a year. 7 works that are either in the canon of great plays, like a George Bernard Shaw, Pygmalion, or they'll do something like Top Dog, Underdog, which was a really edgy play that I saw them do at the time. So they've had Danny Hotch, who's a New York spoken word performer. They've brought in Brian Dennehy for a couple of shows years ago.
How about fans of Richard Jenkins, who I think is one of the best?
Yes.
Richard Jenkins came up through the Trinity Rep system.
Oscar
There's a
Eustace.
lot. You know what?
Yeah.
We might do a whole episode just on Trinity Rep, I think, down the road, because there really have been a lot of super talented actors to kind of come in throughout those doors. But basically, Tony Todd had a Providence connection. He spent those kind of formidable actor years, probably, I don't know, ages 18 to 22, walking the streets of Providence, soaking the scene, and learning how to do his thing. So he kind of liked the idea of returning to Providence. I think he even said, like, man, I haven't been to Providence in like years. Like it had been a long time since he had been back. So I think that had a little something to do with it. So Tony was in. Cast is starting to come together, right?
Yeah.
Now, we've got a kind of Expendables of horror, a lot of action in the script. We need some players that can handle their action, right? We need some stunt performers. Problem is, I can't afford true stunt performers with the money that I have to make this movie. I had to go and rely on a little help with my friends. So this is kind of like a 2-part attack system. Nick Principe, who was the stunt coordinator on Self Storage and also added his own nuance sprinkle to the horror genre, because Nick was in the franchise. He played Chrome Skull, which is basically like the Jason, the Freddy Krueger.
Right.
He played Chrome Skull in the horror franchise series Laid to Rest, which had 1 and 2 badass movies, awesome effects, very violent. And in the horror scene in the convention world, they loved that movie. Horror fans love the Laid to Rest films. And Nick is a Rhode Islander like myself. He grew up 10 minutes down the street from me. And we really hit it off on my first movie. We're still best friends to this day. In fact, like, I literally just left Nick. We're working on the movie Junction together. So it's really cool. Like 9 years later, here we are.
Yes.
So I had Nick, and I knew Nick was an asset. And again, it had been a couple years since Laid to Rest.
Nick's a foxhole buddy, I would say. I would put that guy as, if you're going to go to combat, you want Nick on your side, not on the other side. Is that fair to say?
100%. And not only that, over the years, just to have a Nick Principe appreciation moment. He's always been cool no matter what situation I present him with, in terms of he's never like demanded a crazy amount of money. He's always worked within the means of the budget. He's always made it happen. If there's something that I want to kind of dream up that's impossible, he'll think of like a scenario that's kind of close to it. He's what I call an artist's crew person. There's like business side crew production people. I don't know if we can do that. It's too much this. It's too much this. And then there's a Nick who's like, all right, let's figure this out. So I had Nick on my side, and I knew that he could coordinate all of these stunts. Now all I needed was a stunt performer and stunt performers to handle a lot of these vicious fight scenes in action. And Mike, we say it all the time, and everybody who knows Mike and myself, and if you watch this show enough, and I hope you do, as we travel down the road, we love wrestling. We have, Mike and I kind of never grew out of being little 5-year-old kids in front of the TV watching wrestling. For me, what pro wrestling does is it provides like the ultimate escape. My life's kind of crazy, and my brain's often like getting pounded with like thoughts and ideas from 18 different directions. And when I put wrestling on, I'm able to kind of like shut it all out and just focus on being a kid again and enjoying the simple storylines. And listen, that's a knock because they're not all simple. Some of the most complex storylines I've ever seen were written in the annals of pro wrestling. So it's one of those things where we love wrestling. We wanted to work with some wrestlers because we know that wrestlers are the best stunt people you could possibly get, because any dangerous stunt that a stunt person might be doing, with the exception of maybe lighting yourself on fire, and that's debatable. If you're Kane, wrestling fans will know what I mean.
Sure.
A wrestler does that every night, and they do it without any pads. They do it on the concrete. Oh, you need me to fall on the ground? Okay, I
Get
do that.
shoved through 5 scaffolds. Yeah, right.
I do
Yeah,
that 5 times a night.
sure.
So, well, I went to my wrestling Rolodex. Now, on the movie Self Storage, and this is a shout out to David Gear, producing partner, friend of mine, longtime collaborator.
Yep.
I remember being on the set of Self Storage, and David Gear said, "Hey, bro, you know that we had this one part that just had a few lines, but it's really cool. It started the movie off. He's like, bro, I think I can get Tommy Dreamer to play that part." I go, "Tommy Dreamer? Like the ECW wrestler? Are you kidding me?" Yes, I would fucking love that. And sure enough, Tommy, got in his car and drove to Rhode Island from his home state of New York. And the next day, we made the movie. We shot the scene. He couldn't have been cooler. He couldn't have been more gracious. And there's another guy that we just had an instant bond with. And I think, like, if you look at the back of my baseball card, as I like to say, and take a look at all the statistics, like all the movies that I've made,
Yes.
Tommy Dreamer's probably, if I've directed 10 movies, I don't know what it is, the number, but like Tommy Dreamer's probably been in 6 or 7 of them.
Right.
He's a guy that I just love working with. But not to get ahead of ourselves, I had this really cool character that I kind of tailor made for him. I wrote it for him. It was this like kind of tough, no nonsense Italian American cop. And basically, he was going to be the first one to kind of get it, so to speak, and turn. And one of the first ones to make the flip to Demon. So working with Tommy was just incredible, not only because he's, great to have on set. He's an awesome guy, great performer, amazing stuntman, but there were a couple of other parts where they required some other talent, and Tommy was the kind of nexus to those people that we're about to talk about.
Liaison.
He was the liaison to, well, first off, the first person that we cast, and this is again because she was in Self Storage briefly, just that one scene that Tommy was in. In fact, my memory's a little foggy, but I'm pretty sure she came with Tommy. And that's Theo Trinidad, who, that name might not be incredibly familiar, but wrestling fans all over will know her as Zelina Vega. And
Queen
Mike,
Selena Vega.
yeah, Mike, tell us a little bit about Zelina Vega and just like how big of a deal she is in the wrestling world right now.
Well, I believe she's the current WWE Women's Tag Team Champion, along with Carmella, unless they lost the belts in the last week or two. But they were the champions at WrestleMania. She won, I believe she won the tournament for the Queen of the Ring, how she got the Queen moniker. She was also 5 or 6 or 7 years ago in Total Nonstop Action Wrestling and was Women's Tag Team Champion. And she's kind of one of these, I've met her in person once. She's so humble and nice and reserved in person, but kind of like that light switch when she's on camera. She's kind of like a real idol for the young male fan base. I mean, she's very popular with guys because she's very pretty, and she has a look and kind of a vibe that's.
I think she's probably popular with all people, guys, anybody, because she's got so much confidence too. I'm sure young women can look at her and see a lot of confidence and want to emulate that. But would you say she's a pretty big deal now, Mike?
Well, like I said, she's a WWE Women's Tag Team Champion, and she's Queen Zelina, and she's doing quite well. I mean, for 10 years ago, you may not have had a women's tag team match at WrestleMania, and now Queen Zelina is defending those titles at WrestleMania.
That's a great point, Mike. Look at that. Like, look at the progression in pro wrestling in terms of like what's. I was actually just talking with a friend earlier how like I prefer women's matches. They're more fast paced. The storytelling's there. It's like they're actually advancing the game, which is awesome to see. But back to 9 years ago, at the time, long before Zelina Vega was a thing or even a thought, there was Theo Trinidad, who was just a very eager, very excited, young, she's still young, but very eager, very excited performer that just wanted to get in front of the camera. She had a little taste of it from Self Storage, didn't even have a speaking line in that movie. And then I remember thinking, like, oh, you really want to do this? I'm going to write you a part. So I wrote Thea a part. She played Officer Lawson, and she was kind of this, like, young, very feminine, but very tough police officer, like a rookie cop. And I got to correct myself because earlier I said Dreamer's the first to get it. She's actually the first to get it and turn into a demon, which is pretty fun.
Right.
But I remember working with Thea ahead of time. We had a couple rehearsal times scheduled before the movie even starts. A lot of people might not realize this, but believe it or not, it's not common to rehearse in a movie. I
Yeah.
remember being shocked by that when I first got into the business. Like, wait a minute, because the first couple things I had done were some theater things, and like obviously you rehearse. I remember being shocked that there was no rehearsal. It's like, wait a minute, that's it? We're just going to expect that this comes together. And it's like, yeah, well, that's the filmmaking process. And don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, on
Sure.
big movies, there are rehearsals, but at this game and this level, the rehearsals are more like captain's practices, meaning like if the actor is very eager and excited and really wants to put in the work, yeah, we can schedule some rehearsal time, but it almost never happens.
Right.
But Thea was willing to. I think she was living in Connecticut at the time, and I was in Rhode Island, so we were about an hour away, maybe an hour and a half. And she would get in her car and meet me and drive an hour, hour and a half, and we would sit down and go through the scenes and work out the beats and talk about the character and how the character would flip once she went from rookie cop to demon, how that would kind of go down. And she put a lot of work into that film. And it's kind of funny because there was something about Thea, and this is going to sound corny, and I really mean it. There was something about Thea. We hear this all the time. She had a star quality to her. There was just
Yes.
something about her that, like, long before the bright lights of WWE hit her, I knew she was going to be something very special. She could just like light up a camera, light up a room. Like Mike said, when the camera was off and she was done doing her thing, so humble, so easy to approach and have a conversation with, kind, aware. Can't say enough great things about Thea. And the cool thing about Thea is, and this isn't me like being a name dropper or anything like that, but as incredibly successful as she's become, we don't talk all the time, but like if I reached out to her, she would write back, you know,
Sure.
and that means a lot. You know what I mean? Like, believe it or not, like in this crazy entertainment world, that is a friend. That is like that's all. That's
Yeah.
all you can hope for is that like when you reach out, they'll respond to you, and that means that you got a friend. So Thea was awesome. She was terrific to work with, and I think that fans of Zelina Vega would really love getting after it and watching Army of the Damned and watching a very kind of early performance of the Queen, Selena Vega, in
Yes.
Army of the Damned. So
I,
check that one out if you're a fan. Go ahead, Mike.
I just saw a movie in the theater a few weeks ago. Jake Gyllenhaal was in something called Ambulance, and there was a Latina lady who plays the EMT, and that I'm not sure what that actress's name is, although she was terrific too. But seeing Zelina in Army of the Damned reminded me very much of that actress in this movie Ambulance, and I thought she was a real shining star. I do want to mention, not to take you off track, but for me watching this movie, uh, really, I gotta say Billy V is in it. Billy Vigent, who passed away after a struggle with cancer that lasted for years. And Billy V was a great guy and really a Rhode Island public access television icon, hosting sports memorabilia shows. He would host all types of things. And to see Billy who just passed away maybe 2 or 3 years ago, in your film, really in a great role, and I can tell that he's having fun in any stage of that film. But
Yeah,
there's a moment where there's a fight scene with Sully Erner, the lead singer of Godsmack, the aforementioned icon Tony Todd, and then who comes in to make the save? Billy V. And I'm like, I was loving that. I mean, because it was great to see that, kind of potpourri of talents, and to see
yeah,
Billy right in the mix.
it's interesting when you say that, Mike. I was definitely going to say a little something about Billy down the road, but now that you mention it, we might as well get right into it. Billy V was he's a little bit of he was a little bit of a local kind of icon in the Rhode Island area. Just like Mike said, he had a bunch of local TV shows and radio shows. Kind of was just a who's who of a character, and beloved, loved by many, missed by many. And he passed away. And I remember, I don't want to get into it too much, and we'll get into it on the self storage episode down the road. But I might have gotten into some trouble with some certain guys making my first movie, and Billy V took care of it, and there wasn't an issue. So Billy V was always like an angel that kind of watched over us. I'd like to think that he's still watching over us. And yeah, it is interesting, Mike, when you kind of makes you realize, and I'm kind of getting like chills just thinking about this. But like in a way, that's what's so amazing about what we do in
Right.
cinema, is that we are able to kind of compartmentalize and encapsulate life. And like you said, Billy's no longer with us and we miss him. But it's great to know that we can watch this performance, and like you said, we can see that, that big smile on his face, and we can see all that life and all that energy. And that's what's great about films. It captures those moments forever,
Yes.
forever and ever. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about what we do, is the fact that we might be on set for 3 weeks making a movie, but guess what? It's going to literally live on forever. So we love that. We love Billy V. But let's move on before I get too sad, man.
Sure,
Getting
sure,
sad
sure.
right now. Just thinking about Billy. Some other actors. While we're talking about just some other actors that were in the film. Jackie Moore was terrific in this
She
movie.
was.
Jackie Moore, yeah, she plays the correspondent host on the scene for the Force TV show. Jackie was a very talented, still is a very talented actor, but Jackie was like on this part like a dog, like a wild dog, like going after, what do they say, like a pit bull and a whatever. She
Yeah.
was after this thing. She was like just texting me all the time, like, I've got this really cool idea for this, and what do you think about this? And oh, I would love if she had this really like loud color like dress. What do you think? Like a pantsuit. She was just like really into everything about the character. And a lot of people would think that that might be like, all right, back up. I got my own ideas, but it's like, no, that's what we want.
Yeah.
We want actors to show up. They always say like, come to the table with ideas and things to try. Hell,
Right.
we could always say like, "Nah, I'm not really into that. Nah, we don't have to do. I don't know." But until we hear like an idea, we don't know. So like, just a little tidbit to like learn something from like Jackie's excitement and how eager she was. The more ideas you give the director or the filmmaker, all they can say is no. But like, maybe you give them 10 ideas and they use one of them. Well, great. They used one of your ideas. That's great. But if you never gave them the 10, you probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have gotten the one. No,
Right.
I'm not saying to go trying to redirect the goddamn scene. Don't take what I'm saying wrong. But it's okay in the early stages when you're prepping to kind of have these thoughts and ideas.
And they say
Also,
that
Joe, go ahead.
directing is 90% casting, and I think you're kind of making that same point here, in that if you get the right people, Jackie Moore, Maria Kanellis, Theo Trinidad, Sully Erna, really masterful stroke of getting a rock singer star to be his first, meaty acting role. Uh, the aforementioned Tony Todd, Joey Fatone from NSYNC. You've put together a nice team there, and everybody's kind of like a stone soup of casting. You've brought these different people with their fan bases, of course, that's great, but also their talents, that's even bigger. And you've
Yeah,
put
and
them in this unusual film, which I do have some thoughts on as a fan perspective. But
well,
keep going.
let's back it up though, because we did forget one, and again, Apologies. I have my show notes right in front of me, but we forgot an incredible piece of talent from
Yeah.
the wrestling realm, and that is none other than the first lady of wrestling, Maria Kanellis, who,
Yeah.
again, backing it up to Tommy Dreamer, this part was actually cast, and there was a dropout situation at the last minute. And I said, Tommy, like, oh man, like, do you know any like female wrestlers that could come in and play this part? I need someone very athletic. What do you got? And I remember he pulled up Maria Kanellis' photo, and at the time, like, believe it or not, wrestling fans will understand this, but a lot of wrestling fans have what we call their dark years, where they kind of like just aren't watching.
You were a
And
lapsed fan, Tommy.
I
Yeah.
was a lapsed fan, and I hadn't really watched wrestling in a few
Yeah.
years at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember like kind of like being like, oh, she's got a great look. And then I remember like going on Twitter
Yeah.
and seeing that she had like, you know, hundreds of thousands of followers. And I
Yes.
was like, oh shit. I was like, we're on to something here. And this is
Yeah.
again, social media was still kind of, I don't want to say in its infancy, but like at the time, like it was a big friggin' deal if you had a few 100,000 followers. And it was one of those things where we were kind of like, okay, well, this is great. Like I remember just thinking like she's got a terrific look. Tommy says she's awesome to work with. She's athletic. She can do all the stunts, and she's got all these followers. I
Yeah.
was like, yes, please. And sure enough, it's kind of cool. Mike Bennett at the time had kind of just started dating Maria Kanellis at the time, and she was staying with him and in Massachusetts. So she
Right.
was only like a car ride away. She was like 45 minutes or an hour away from my parents' house where we shot the movie. So sure enough, there we go. We got our final sort of piece to the puzzle. We've got Maria Canales joining the wrestling oriented gang, ready to do all these kick ass stunts. We've got our team together. Production's about to start, and we get into the world of prep. Because, guys, if you're going to make a movie like this in 15 days on a very low budget, it really is all about the prep work and how much effort you put in before the cameras ever turn on. Because if you're not so in tune with everything that you're doing once, like, the gun goes off, as they say, you're going to fall so far behind that you'll just never catch up.
Right.
You can't be like deciding what you're going to do while you're in production. You already have to have a plan and just be like, all right, what are we doing? What's next? What's next? Obviously, you always stray from a plan a little bit, but you got to have a tight plan. And we definitely had that on this movie. I would say, like, if I were to grade anything on this movie, even more so than the actual production, the prep was by far like the only probably one of the only reasons why we really survived and made it to the end. We were so prepared for this. And that's all that goes to, there's a few people that I have to mention. John Del Ponte, one of my best friends since I was in high school.
JDP.
Yeah, we call him JDP. And John Del Ponte is a production designer, but before he was a production designer, John was a construction worker. John did a little bit of plumbing, did a little bit of electrical work. He was just one of these guys who could kind of like build anything, create anything, amazing with tools. But also, John's this like big, burly, strong guy, and he's got tattoos. He wouldn't mind if I told you he's a little rough around the edges. But he's also this incredible artist.
Yes.
He can paint, he can draw, he can create. So John had like all these amazing skill sets and came together. And also, I mean, like I said, we're shooting this at my parents' house. We all been hanging out at my parents' house since we were kids. We knew the lay of the land pretty damn good. And we were able to like just do amazing things, turning this house into this creepy construction site, haunted house, kind of abandoned crime scene where all this shit just goes down.
Let me say something about that, Tommy, because what I found striking about the film that I wasn't expecting was the lighting. The lighting, to me, my interpretation of it was when some of this, pseudo zombie demon turns are happening. There's like a light, like an overexposure of light of energy that strikes the house, which Tommy and Thea's characters kind of suffer through, and then that becomes a running theme of the film. This powerful light that's evil, basically. And I did find, I want to make a comparison to ECW for wrestling fans. Extreme Championship Wrestling was this small town wrestling promotion out of Philadelphia that their mantra was to emphasize the positive and to downplay the negative of their performers in order for maximum results. And I felt like that was kind of something I felt in this movie as well, because you didn't have all the money in the world to make the paints bleed, the walls bleed or something like that. But the effect of this overexposure of light, which I hadn't really seen in horror films before that I could remember. I've seen my fair share of horror films. I thought that was very effective. And I thought that I could, watching this movie now and kind of knowing your history and also the history of some of these players in the house, it was kind of like that Usual Suspects moment for me, like seeing all these things coming together. Now it all makes sense. You know what I mean? And I was pretty impressed because I could see that you had some limitations, perhaps financially, but there were things that you guys did, or you did specifically as the director, to make up for that. Some of the things were like there were moments when a character would be kind of either suffering from a battle or getting ready to go back into battle, and they're like kind of cleaning up their arm and they're getting ready to fight. And there's I believe Sully and Godsmack provided a song or two for this movie. Was it
They did.
Pain and Pleasure in My Mind or something like that?
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that because that was like a whole thing. But yes, this was the first movie that I ever made that had like legitimate music, which was pretty cool. But thank you, Mike. I really appreciate that, man. And a lot of that lighting has to be I got to give credit to two people on the lighting side, and I was just about to kind of talk to some of them, talk about some of these guys anyway. But Sam Allerton was my director of photography on this movie, cinematographer. Really cool because this was the first movie that I ever shot with Sam, and we kind of like had this kind of concept for this blasting glow of light. And it's cool because Sam and I went on to, again, use my back of the baseball card reference. If you were to see like who the people that were on the same team with me, Sam Artson shot a few of my movies, and we are still to this day collaborators. We shot a music video together last week, actually. Shot Vault, worked on Johnny and Clyde. So this was the first time collaborating with Sam Eilertson at that level. And Sam is so responsible for a lot of the success that I had in my first, handful of movies. I can't say enough great things about just the brain behind Sam Eilertson. He's just a brilliant, brilliant guy and just an awesome guy to work with. And he kind of immediately like could understand he spoke my language creatively. Gotcha. And that's really something special. And Brandon Maxham, who is a terrific, at the time he was a gaffer. He's now gone on to primarily be a director of photography, cinematographer. But at the time he was the gaffer. He was for lack of a better phrasing, the lighting person in charge of grip and electric. And he was responsible for taking our concept and, okay, you want a bunch of light? Well, I actually have to make that happen. So it's pretty cool, not to skip around, but Mike had mentioned this big lighting gag. That was Brandon Maxham literally like using every single light that he had in the kit. The entire truck was empty and every light was working in every window. And we actually had a system over the walkie-talkie where we would have all available hands. It was literally like it took like 8 or 9 people to do this, but it'd be like, okay, 3, 2, 1, hit them, and then everyone at the same time would have to flick their switch, and boom, all the light would project out. And we had to do it a few times because like if everyone didn't hit their switch at the exact same time, it would kind of look a little stutter fucky. And we don't like stutter
blow fucky. Up Cranston, Rhode Island while you're at it.
Yeah, it was like that scene in Christmas Vacation. You see, like, my parents probably got the fucking electric bill and were like, "What the fuck?" No, that was part of the deal. We paid the electric bill for them for the 1 month. But Mike, I'm so sorry to do this, but I have to take a quick time out just to we missed somebody so fucking significant. I feel like a jerk, but I'm gonna go back and say it. people that know me know that Baywatch is one of my favorite shows in the universe. I watch it all the time. I still watch Baywatch on Pluto TV. It's like my go to bed show, my like
Yeah.
easy listening. I don't really go to
When
bed
you
to
need a
Baywatch.
break from wrestling, you go to Baywatch. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But mainly I'm staying in that little comfort zone. I
Sure.
love Baywatch. I'll watch it in the morning sometimes. Like I'll be brushing my teeth or
Right.
like shaving and I have it on my phone and I'm just like, I'm at the beach. Mitch is there. CJ's there.
Oh
And you
yeah.
know who else is there?
David.
Cody is there,
Yeah.
aka David Chokachi.
Yeah.
Who I can't believe David. I'm so sorry for not mentioning you sooner. I've got a lot on my plate, brother. But David Chokachi was so awesome to work with. I loved working with him. He played this like hot shot badass cop who like you just want to see him get his ass kicked so bad. And David leaned into that. It was so much fun to work with. I remember him only, he was another one who was only on set for a few days. But I remember emailing back and forth with David Chokachi. I specifically remember being like on a little like weekend getaway like with my family or whatever, and I remember like getting up early because I had like so much like nervous energy because I knew I was about to make the movie or casting, and I was like, I can't believe I'm emailing David Chokachi. I was like so excited just that like any like legitimate
Right.
actors wanted to like even respond to me at the time. And David was into it, man, and he even like had this cool concept to like um wear these like sunglasses all the time, which kind of ended up becoming like part of his
Prescription.
character. And like, yeah, and he'd be like, "They're fucking prescription," and it like
Yeah.
became this funny thing where like that
Yeah.
wasn't in the script originally. That was like a David Chokachi ad lib. Um, so David was awesome to work with. And again, like now think about like Chad wanted to make the Expendables of horror, but in a way, we made like the Expendables of pop culture
Yes.
because like we had a star from Baywatch, which was a massive pop culture phenomenon. We had a star from Godsmack, which is like the rock genre. We had a star from a pop band like NSYNC, but we had just like across the board all these little different spices of pop culture, and it
It's
was
a
just this great.
cinematic rock and shock.
Yeah, it really was. It's funny. It almost did. It was almost like a convention on
Yes.
wheels in a way,
Right.
like a cinematic convention.
Convention of
Um,
celluloid.
yeah, so we had this whole gang together, and another big part of these types of movies, obviously, and this is kind of like where I think the movie didn't lack, and I think this is one of the reasons why the movie worked in a sense. Good old fashioned, old school, physical, practical, special effects makeup, gags as they call them. Like this isn't CGI. There really wasn't a lot of CGI in this entire movie. This was all like the good old fashioned, like this is how we do it. Latex, lots of molds, and that was all the work of Ben Bornstein. And you hear the term a lot, like movie magic, and the special effects artists truly are like they're fucking magicians, man. Like what they're able to do with simple, I don't want to say household items because they're not always, but sometimes they are. But just what they're able to create. Mike had mentioned earlier, one of the cool things about these demons is the demons are able to weaponize. And what I mean by that is if this demon gets their arm cut off in battle,
Yeah.
well, they're going to find a way to like fix themselves and fasten a weapon to that stump. So we get this really cool scene. Like one of my favorite scenes in the movie is Theo's character, and there's another character played by an actor by the name of Tom Paolino, and we called him Sledge Fist because he had both of their arms got like damaged badly in battle,
Yes.
and there's this old workshop, and Mike was talking about the scene earlier, and we actually see the Sledge Fist character like cut part of his arm off so that he can attach the sledgehammer, and we see Theo Trinidad like cut her fingers off so that she can attach this blade, and it's just really nasty, visceral stuff. And it's all just the work of Ben Bornstein and these really cool latex pieces that he built by, my parents have a greenhouse at their house, and he took that greenhouse. All the plants were taken out. They probably died. My dad was probably really pissed. But basically, the plants were taken out. and we turned the greenhouse into Ben's special effects lab because it had a sink, it had running water, it had plenty of light, had some ventilation for the various paints and latex. Hey, if you ever need to make a movie and you have a greenhouse and it's not summertime because you'd probably die of heat exhaustion, the greenhouse actually ended up being a perfect little place for us to have Ben's little workshop. So I just remember some really, really amazing effects coming out of Ben's workshop. Um, I got a chance to work with Ben on Vault. He's a really talented artist. If you look him up on IMDb, Ben Bornstein, it's amazing all the shows that he's worked on. He's worked on uh, TV shows like Gotham and has created just so many amazing things. Mike, what's up, brother? You look like
Let me mention a scene. I don't know if Ben probably had something to do with this. You tell me. Tony Estrella, talking about Trinity Repertory Company, another place, Sandra Feinstein Gam Theater, formerly Alias Stage. This guy, Tony Estrella, was the grand poobah over there, the artistic director for 10 or 15 years. And he's in your movie. And I believe, Tony, you tell me, I thought it was a very powerful scene. Like he's kind of in this
yeah,
Shakespearean moment that becomes like it's like you really pick the right guy for that type of scene, and then Tony has kind of a fatal ending that people can
yeah.
watch when they see
We're
the
gonna
whole
spoil
movie.
it. We'll go spoiler alert on this one just because it's a really cool effect, and you're absolutely right. That was the magic of Ben Bornstein, but we
Great
needed a
job, Ben.
really talented. I brought in a guy by the name of Tony Estrella to play this part because we needed this almost like character to activate the spell
Yeah,
that calls this demon upon us. And like Mike said, like it is kind of borderline, like, it's not Shakespearean, but it is like there's a chant that's on like another kind of gravity
elevation,
that's
elevated.
it's an elevated way of speaking, yeah.
Yeah,
And we brought Tony in, and the character, to seal the deal of the spell, has to actually slit his own throat.
yes,
Now, in the process of doing that, there was this rig that basically, and you'll see it in the movie. You can't see it, but there's a rig that goes across Tony's neck. There's a pump that goes down his body off camera, and then there's a tiny little hole that you'd never see right in the neck. And when he comes across with the knife, fake knife, we don't put real knives near people's throats. It's a fake knife. Well, he comes across with it. This is the hard part. The timing needs to be perfect. When he comes across, Ben Bornstein's literally like kneeling on the ground, pumping a fucking fire extinguisher, an actual pressurized fire extinguisher full of blood through those tubes all the way up and out the neck. Little funny story, trial and error. Now this takes about an hour to rig, right?
yeah.
First time we did it, and this shit just happens, man. Let's look. It's not an exact science making movies. This shit's gonna happen all the time. But the first time he does it, he comes across, the timing's perfect. Ben's pumping the thing, and the blood just wouldn't come out. It, for
Oh,
whatever reason, that tube just got pinched in such a way where, yeah, there might have been a little trickle down, but I wanted a full on like Tarantino style like blood jet. I wanted it to be nasty and gnarly. So like, you never want to take up too much time, but like this is something that I knew like no, 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 this needs to be right. We got to do this again.
yeah.
So I took the time, and it was a little bit. I remember it was kind of like I remember my producers were like, "Are you sure about this?" And I was like, "No, no, we need to do this." We stripped the whole rig. We re-rigged Tony. We got him up there. We did it a second time, and it was absolutely perfect. I'm so glad we did it again because it's like Mike said, it is one of the best effects in the movie, and hey, it's cool to see what other people find memorable in your film. So thanks for reminding us about that effect.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, Ben Bornstein, just I can't say enough great things about what he brought to the table on this one. Um, but also, we got to mention a couple other guys. David Lucier was a producer on this movie, and David Lucier was also, I think he did 20 something years in the Providence Police Force. So it was great to have a producer that couldn't be a better police consultant, for what's accurate, what's real, what's procedural. And, just to have on for, the actors were constantly going up to David and being like, how would you enter a room with a gun? Like, how would you clear this area? He was just like perfect for tactical kind of coaching for all the talent, just to have him there.
Was he the guy that had the incident with Hulk Hogan in Boston Garden?
He sure was.
He's a security guard.
David was also a security guard at the Boston Garden back in the mid-'80s, and once got in a shoving match with Hulk Hogan.
Which I think David won.
Yeah, David's a big. Let me tell you something. David's a big dude, and to this day, he benches a lot. He throw up some weight. He's like, I want to say 6'5", 260, all muscle. He's a bad dude. But yeah, David was awesome to have around. And there were a lot of guns in this movie. You know, it's a big gun movie. So to have a guy who's basically an expert on guns hanging around was special. And just a great producer across the board. And his daughter is kind of fun. His daughter Jessica played the little girl that like kind of runs around the movie.
Oh yes, she's good too. She's very good. Yeah,
she's very talented, and it's kind of funny because I'm pretty sure Jessica's like a senior in high school now, and I think she just like got accepted to college. So congratulations to Jessica. Just another way to feel really old when the little kid in your movie is now going off to college. But hey, that's what happens. The goal of life is to get older, right?
I think I have a quick David Lucier story, Tommy. Our mutual friend David Gear assigned me to meet David Lucier in a parking lot of Toys R Us.
Sounds sketchy, buddy. This is sounding sketchy already.
It's okay. But basically, David handed me, which I was supposed to bring to Gear, which I did the next day, a bag full of prop guns. And
very sketchy.
Yeah. So I kind of grew up in a non-gun environment. Like I never went hunting. I had maybe one or two toy guns as a kid. I did not have a BB gun. So guns to me are just kind of a foreign thing. I probably spend more time with guns hanging out with you than anybody else. But basically I meet David Lucier and he's got this huge canvas bag full of all these guns. And I'm just like, do I need a license for this? Is this legal? Like, and I mean, but apparently it was all in the up and up. And I was just really nervous because I had to drive that bag full of, and they were prop guns. They weren't loaded. There was no, ammo or anything, but I had to drive that bag full of prop guns from Rhode Island to deep into Connecticut for David Gear's music video.
And just so that people know too, like not to cut you off, but we're talking like some serious hardware. We're not talking about like pistols. Like these are like fucking assault rifles. These are like like a small Uzi, a submachine gun. Like this is some fucking hardware. So like, although they were props, if Mike ever got pulled over, and a cop were to ever just like look at these things, he would be like, "Get the fuck out of!" Like immediately, guns would come out, and Mike would be on the ground because it would just not look right. So
that's why I was nervous about
it. It'd be hard to explain to a cop. No offense, Mike. Look at the way you look. You're kind of a big, intimidating guy with tattoos. It'd be hard to explain. Like, no, officer, you're gonna find a bag full of a dozen assault rifles. They're all props. I'm making a movie. There's nothing to be afraid of. Don't point your gun at me. So David was there, and so the two Davids will segue into David Gear, who was very instrumental in making this film. David played a cool part towards the end of the movie where there's a little bit of a supernatural flip, and David was in charge of getting a lot of these guns for us, and just great to have on all around. David was kind of like we said earlier, he was the he introduced me to this whole world of pro wrestling and actually like interacting with these people. Where when I was a kid, I'd only watch them on TV. Thanks to David, I was able to actually like meet these people, get to know them, work with them, have them in many of my films. So David's a great producer and a great connector of people. I think that's his best asset. Is just his ability to kind of link people together. And David's another guy where if you look at repeat offenders who they say like in the gangster. What do they say in the gangster movies? Like a known associate. David's a known associate, and we have a lot of fun. Like
he's a friend of ours.
Yeah, he's a friend of ours. We laugh our asses off when we're together, and who doesn't love laughing your ass off? But also I just wanted to mention real quick. I know I keep doing this, but it was a bigger cast than I thought. I guess actor Joe Sirianni did an awesome job. He played the kind of like lovable, I would say, veteran police presence on the scene.
Yeah.
And he's got a really great scene with the little girl character who, he's kind of like doing his standard like checkup on her to see if she's okay. And he realizes that this girl doesn't have a pulse yet. She's like living and breathing and talking right in front of me. Um, there must be something rotten in Denmark, kind of a thing. So Joe did a great job. And these movies, again, I say this all the time, but I got to reiterate, like, one of my favorite things about making these movies is, again, we don't have the kind of budgets where like every actor is going to be a name actor that you've seen on TV or in movies. So what that means is we have a chance to really open it up to the local talent pool in the New England area where we make these movies, and a lot of people that have been kind of grinding away and looking for these opportunities get a chance to act alongside like big name actors that they've seen in movies their whole lives. And Joe Sirianni is one of those guys who got a chance to, as they say, like play at that level, and he did a terrific job. And another great performance. It's kind of just weaved through the webbing of this film.
And Mulhall had a nice role as the phone operator as well. And
She did.
Annie, who worked for Mad TV, 15 or 20 years ago behind the scenes, she has comedic chops. And although she did go against her own rule of not acting, because she said several times that now that she's a casting director, she can't really act because it's a conflict of interest. But she made the exception to the rule for your movie, and I thought she did quite well.
Well, it was very easy to convince her because it was, again, like Anne is very funny, and
Yes.
she's just got a great natural comedic timing, and she knows, again, like she just knows what's funny.
Yeah.
And it was cool to be able to just kind of be like, hey, can we just bring you in for this one scene? It'll be a quick little pop. But the nice thing is you get a scene in the beginning of the movie. We'll see you like a little bit towards the middle of the movie, and then we'll see you at the end of the movie too. So like, although we're gonna shoot your scene out in one day, it's gonna kind of appear as though you're in a little bit more of the movie. And she crushed it. And that was
Yes.
actually, believe it or not, Anne Mulhall's bit, the opening scene where Anne plays the dispatcher who gets that like first freak call.
Yeah.
That was the very first thing that we shot in the movie. And it was, you know, it was kind of like the only time for the most part. There might be one other scene where we weren't actually at my parents' house.
Right.
Like out of the 15 days, we were at my parents' house for, I think 14 of them. And then there was one day where we did the Ann Mulhall bit. There was actually another scene. Shout out to Chad Birdie Jr., who so funny. Like, Chad's a producer on this movie Junction that I just came from before we did this show. He's a grown man now. He's
With a
he's
kid and
obviously
a wife.
grown man with a family and everything else. And it's fun to rewatch this. I watched it again this morning, and there's Chad Jr. I think he's 16 years old, and he's in this kind of like two teenage kids get caught at Lover's
Oh, that
Lane
was
kind of a
Chad
scene.
Jr. I didn't recognize him. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was Chad Jr., very young. And he did this really funny bit where like he actually like he covers his face to like not be peeking, and he like opens up his eye. And it's funny, I was on set with him today, and I was like, we were all busting each other up, and we were like, let's take a look. I was like, what, you mean this scene? He's like, no, don't show me. And I played the scene, and we all laughed. And we looked at it, we were like, yeah, that wasn't too bad. That was a pretty good scene. He did a good job.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to just like, again, you watch these movies years later, and they really are like a goddamn time capsule
Yes.
for like where you were and what you were doing at that time. And, it's really cool to see that. So yeah, Army of the Damned has been kind of, we set the stage. We're all kind of at my parents' house. We've got this great cast. We've got a damn good plan in place. We're about to get into it. But one of the ways that we needed to shoot this movie, since so much of the film took place in the dark, if you're a screenwriter, you'll know what I mean when that slug line says EXT, wherever you are, night, or even if it says INT, obviously we're talking about exterior, interior, Night. When you see night, it's a big deal because that means that, like, okay, well, we've got two options. We can either black out the windows, which is a pretty big undertaking to tent everything off if you don't have the, one of those bigger G&E
Right.
packages. By G&E, I mean Grip and Electric. You tent everything off. Probably ain't going to work. We don't have the budget for that. Or guess what? We're just going to have to shoot overnights for 14 fucking days. So we did 14 overnights
Brutal.
in a row. So we did like that first day on the road during the day. Everybody get home, sleep, or if you're smart, stay up all night, sleep that day, and boom, overnights. Now, I had been kind of conditioned to do overnights because we shot overnights on self-storage. But overnights are one of those things where, like, if you're not ready for it, it can really fuck with you in so many levels. It can mess with your sleep. It can, like, obviously, like to me, to this day, like after making back-to-back movies and overnights, like I still like can kind of just stay up all night. Like I was conditioned to do that. And to, the hard part is obviously like our brains weren't designed to be thinking at 3:30 in the morning. So like now you need to be doing all this like massive, efficient thinking and you're exhausted. So we had to kind of fight through that. But overnights also build a great sense of team camaraderie because there's something very cool about, I don't know, maybe this is me and maybe I'm romanticizing this a little bit, but there's something kind of cool about working when the rest of the world is asleep and like being up while the rest of the world is asleep. There's something kind of cool about like finishing your day when the rest of the world is just waking up and like you don't have to do shit because you already did your day. It's kind of funny, like cracking a beer at 7 a.m. because we just finished. And cheers to a great production as I see the school bus drive by and taking the kids to school.
McDonald's is opening for breakfast.
And we're having a celebratory shot of Jack Daniels as I see my neighbors coming out to mow the lawn in the morning or whatever have you, or go to work. And there we are.
The local crow is crowing for the morning cackle-doo-doo-doo type of thing.
And you're having your after-work drink or whatever it may be, your after-work snack at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then guess what? I mean, here's the funny thing about overnights. You would think like, oh, you must just go to bed after that. No. And it's not that, listen, this isn't just movies. I'm sure anybody who's worked a graveyard shift knows this. When you're working overnights and you're on a movie set, you're already a little positively charged. You ain't going to bed right away. There's no just like lay down. You got to unwind. You got to get yourself wound down. Now, listen, there's a lot of different ways to wind it down. We're not going to get into that on this show. It's kind of a different topic. But, sometimes a light level of partying is what certain people do to bring themselves down, calm themselves down, get ready for a day slumber. And I would say that, like, we like to talk about where we went wrong and mistakes and things like that. And I got to say, looking back, I can't believe some of the things that we did on this movie to kind of like, we got a little out of control at times. And, all of it was in good fun, but like, there was a lot of partying on the set of Army of the Damned. It was by far like the most kind of intense. Now listen, let me say this right now, and I do not allow any kind of that shit to happen from bell to bell, meaning like when we show up for work all the way to when we finish work, there's no drinking, there's no smoking, there's no bullshit. When we say wrap, that's a different story. Okay. So wrap time comes and things got a little out of hand on this movie. You got a house full of a dozen or so late 20 somethings, and it got just a little out of control. The partying got to like a crazy level, to the point where I don't want to say any stories that are gonna get us in any trouble, but like one night, just to like, we had like a really good day and we were all excited and we went into like where all the lunch and the crafty was being served. and we just got like ridiculous. It started like a food fight
Wow.
at like uh 3 in the morning or something like that, or four, or no, I'm sorry, it wasn't 3 in the morning. It was like it had to be like 3 in the afternoon by that point. And I remember we just like had this crazy food fight where there was like cakes and whatever was like
Oh,
left over on Crafty, and we're just like throwing at everyone. Like Nick Principe was involved in that. I'm gonna name some names: John Del Ponte and Ben Bornstein, and we're all just like heaving entire cakes that like didn't get eaten at each other, like little kids like ducking behind things and popping up and throwing cookies at each other and just like getting out of friggin' control. Tables got flipped. We were, like first you start throwing a cake, it's harmless. Then we started like throwing chairs at each other and like
yeah.
throwing like large, like heavy objects and like laughing hysterically, which probably could have, someone could have got like seriously injured. And then we all like passed out or whatever. And I remember like just like getting up in the morning, which is the night, and getting ready for work, and us all waking up out of our stupor and kind of like coming into the garage is where all the food is. We open up the door, we're just like we like see one of the PAs who's like showing up to work,
Yeah.
and he's like white faced, like saw a ghost, and he goes, "What happened to the lunchroom? Like, did a bear get in it?" He thought a fucking bear. The kid thought that we left the fucking garage door open and that
And a
an
bear in
actual
Cranston.
bear in Cranston went in there like goddamn Yogi the Bear and started like fucking. That's how bad it looked. Somewhere I have photos of this because we were just like both surprised, shocked, ashamed. And then the funny thing is, like, we're looking at the watch. We're like, shit, like Chad's gonna be here in like an hour. That's our
Right.
producer. It's like, coach is coming.
Yeah.
We got to whip this place into shape. So everyone pounded their water, hydrated, whatever the fuck to get ready. And everybody just like, it was almost like an 80s movie montage. Like
That's the way
we
it's
put on
good.
like Let's Hear It for the Boy or some
Yeah,
shit.
right.
And we all just like danced and cleaned
Neutron
our
dance.
asses up.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
in a matter of like 20, 30 minutes, the hands of many make the work light, whatever the fuck the
Yeah.
saying is. Um, we clean the place up, and Chad walks in, and this is the funny part. He's kind of like, "Place looks great. You guys kept it clean, isn't it?" And we all look at each other. We're like, wink, like, "Yeah, you should have been here like 35 minutes ago. It looked like a goddamn butt." The kid thought a bear showed up, so it was nuts. We had production assistants sleeping in tents in the backyard. It was like it was a happening. Army of the Damned was a happening, and it was one of those things where I probably learned that, like, okay, although it is important to blow off a little steam after you finish working, maybe not that much steam needs to be blown off. Maybe we could take it easy. And I will say this, we all kind of matured a lot. That's what it is, man. I'm just gonna come out and say it. We were
Sure.
we were 20 something years old. We felt like we were pretty damn charged up and excited that we were making this movie. And we just had so much fucking energy. As
Yeah.
crazy as it sounds, like we were just so happy to be there and be making this movie. And we all really did. This is gonna sound kind of like a love fest, but we really liked each other. Like this was like a family affair making this movie. Like it's nice to. I'm not going to do an Al Pacino 1 inch Game of Inches speech, but there was this like element of team camaraderie where we were living together, we were working together, we were partying together, and it was a hell of a time. But I will say this: in hindsight, it was a little excessive, and we certainly learned. But there was one. I'll tell one more final story, and please don't ever do this because it's not good, and I probably shouldn't even tell this story. But we had a prop police car. Uh, we took it out one night, and I remember like being on Oaklawn Ave. This was like an off night, and we took it out just because like it was an SUV, and we could all kind of pile into it. And we were like, all right, we're not going to put the lights on or anything. We're just going to like drive to the hotel. And I think so, I don't want to name names, but somebody was having a party in their hotel room. So we showed up to the hotel room and, had a good time. And on the way home, we convinced our designated driver, which we did have one of the police car. We were like, "Come on, like light him up, like light him up like one time." You know, we're on like Oaklawn Avenue, and if you're from Cranston, it's like one of the main drags.
Yeah.
Like light him up, and we're all like, "Light him up, light it up." So I think John Del Ponte was driving. He's like, "All right." He flips on the lights, and there we are, like 3 in the morning, with the bubblegum machine going, and we're just like zipping down Oakland Avenue. And believe it or not, I don't know how the fuck we didn't get in trouble, but we passed the cop, and we're like, "Fuck!" Like they're gonna think like that, like,
What's
oh
he
my
gonna?
god, like we thought he was gonna kind of join us in whatever pursuit or call the
Yeah.
radio, and luckily, like just I guess you could say like idiot's luck, uh, we took a right, and before you know it, we were in my neighborhood, and nobody came to knock on the door, and whatever. Just
No
we
blood,
got
no
away with that
foul.
one.
I
But
got
we
I got
learned. Go ahead, Mike.
I got two questions for you. First of all, where was Donnie during all this madness?
Oh
Donnie
my
is
god,
Tommy's cat, the veteran cat of the house. Where was Donnie during? Did he go
Mike.
to the beach house or
I
what?
would like to say that Donnie is traumatized to this day for what he was put through during the filming of Army of the Damned. And again, we didn't, and we fed him and we took care of him. We all loved him. He was like our little set bud. But the reality is, he didn't come out much, man. Like Donnie had a closet that he was just kind of like hunkered down in for a few weeks, and he would come out to eat and use the his little Donnie room. But for the most part, Donnie was like, "These guys are fucking maniacs. I'm gonna be in this closet. Let me know when y'all leave." There is a funny story. Like my uncle Tommy was driving by, and he didn't know about the movie really, and he just saw
Yeah.
like 50 cars parked outside of my house. And I remember someone just saying like over the walkie, like, "Tommy's uncle's here." I'm like, what the fuck? Like what? And my uncle Tom just walks in. He's got this big smile on his face, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "It's yeah, come watch my monitor. It's getting a little crazy." And he was just laughing. He just thought it was hilarious, obviously, to see his sister's house turned into a movie set.
Wanted to ask about the neighbors, Tommy, and I don't want to bring up any hard feelings with the neighborhood, but did you guys go around to your next door neighbors and say, "Hey, folks, we're gonna be filming a movie for the next 2 weeks," and just so you know, or did you not do that, or was
No,
there
we
any
did.
complaints?
So first off, anybody who's going to be shooting in any kind of residential area, the first thing that they should do is notify anybody within an eye shot of what the hell's going on. Because keep in mind, we got things like we've got actors with prop firearms, we got guns walking around. Like, this is a serious thing. Like, as a safety concern, two things could happen. If a neighbor sees somebody with a gun, they could either hopefully just call the police and then they'll show up, or you could get some fucking wannabe hero who takes out their fucking gun and tries to confront you or shoot you or whatever.
Right.
Like in this day and age, people that gun people, I don't want to generalize, but they have that thing for a reason. They might think of this as an opportunity to use it. So you always got to notify everybody in the area that we're making a movie. You're going to see a lot of fresh faces and different people in the neighborhood. We're going to be parking cars over here. We didn't want to be intrusive. We knew that it would be like an issue. So what we did was we decided to just like canvass the neighborhood with flyers and make it something that the neighbors could be a part of. Make it so that I think I said like on this little flyer that I put together, like, we're making a movie right in the neighborhood. Tommy DiNucci here, blah blah blah. I grew up right down here in this house, and now I'm making. And I'd love you to be a part of it. And I think there was an opportunity where we set up like certain hours in the day where basically anyone in the neighborhood could come and watch and check it out. And it was fun. We tried to make it an experience for the neighbors rather than like a pain in the ass.
Hmm.
And the truth is, movies aren't that exciting to watch.
Right.
Um, if you've been on set for a few hours, you're gonna be looking at your watch and be like, "Shit, all right, got my fill of the movie world. I'm ready to go home because the reality is, like, what we do is exciting in tiny little spurts. It's like watching a football game.
Right. Hurry up and wait.
It's like it's one great play and then all right, stop.
Yeah.
Great play and stop. So there's a lot of that going on. So like, if you're not actively working on the set and you don't have a job to do, it's like watching grass grow. You know. So
Yeah.
so we kind of knew that like, yeah, they'll come by, they'll watch for a little while, and they'll be like, I'm gonna go home and watch reruns of Seinfeld or whatever the fuck it is, and
Yeah. Friends.
get back to my life. So that was kind of it. Listen, Army of the Damned was one of these movies that I'm so excited about, and here we are talking about it for almost 2 hours now. When this show is normally only scheduled for 1 hour, but it's just there's a lot of excitement when I talk about this film, and it kind of reminds me of like the days when I was just starting out and very, very eager to just make movies. And like I said early in the show, like just how badly I just wanted to get that sophomore movie out of the gate and out into the world, kind of get over the first movie that I did and keep moving forward. And it's cool to think that like, a lot of the people that I worked with on this movie, I still work with on a regular basis. Just a couple shout outs. Steve Levin is a first AC that I, again, just left the set of Junction and saw Steve, said what's up to him. Joe Cantor, he's a sound person that, he mixed this show, and he was also the sound mixer on Johnny and the Clyde. Johnny and the Clyde.
Right.
Easy to combine Army of the Damned and Johnny and the Clyde. But yeah, just really great people that I've been working with for many years, and it's fun to think that we've got all this in the bank, and I can go back and
You made a note to mention Jonathan Shermanhorn, Tommy. I just don't want that to pass us by.
Yeah, Jonathan Shermanhorn. Again, we talked about like how well thought out the prep was, and how
Right.
really this thing was won in the pre-production, and that was all Jonathan Shermanhorn. Kind of like I remember spending many kind of hours on right here on the porch, breaking out the schedule and figuring out all the most intelligent and efficient ways to approach the schedule, so that we were, you don't want to be going from upstairs to downstairs to the basement to back upstairs to back outside to inside. You just had like a really efficient way to like, all right, we're going to shoot everything in this room, and then we're going to move on to this room. We almost like kind of shot out the rooms as sets rather than shoot out the actors, because we knew everybody was here. But yeah, just a great group of people. Trial by fire. I will say this. Maybe Mike, I should talk about the biggest mistake that was made on this movie.
Yeah,
Maybe
please do.
others can learn from this. Nick Principe, I'm still sorry about this. To this day, I regret it, and I know I fucked it up. So I apologize for that. And next time I have you faulty or maybe death, I promise I'll cover it better. So that's the preface to this story. Nick Principe, our stunt performer, did one of the most amazing things I've ever seen with my own two eyes. He basically got on the roof of my house and did a goddamn backwards free fall off of the house and landed on, I'm not bullshitting you, there's photos of this somewhere. We built a giant cube of cardboard boxes, the very boxes that you'd get, just your standard moving boxes that you can get at any moving company. Believe it or not, and don't try this at home.
Please don't.
Please don't try this at home, but this does work. John Del Ponte built a giant cube, a 1-story, probably, well, maybe 1.5-story, 15, 16-foot cube of boxes stacked on top of each other. It was, again, probably 15 feet high and probably 10 feet long. Do the math, cubed out, picture like a big fucking square.
Yeah.
Of cardboard boxes fashioned together with tape. Nick Principe free falls backwards. And the idea is that here are all the boxes. You go like ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. And you'll slowly, as you drop, the boxes will collapse row by row by row by row by row, breaking your fall. and hopefully you don't die when you hit the ground. Because guess what? You ain't landing on a fucking airbag. You're landing on the grass outside, just below all those boxes. So Nick put on what we call a gator back, which is basically just like, picture like a catcher's mitt
Right.
that goes on your chest, but it's on your back. It's like
Yes.
you're basically like a Ninja Turtle when you're wearing this thing. He had the gator back. He didn't have anything for his head. Didn't have a butt pad, I don't think. Maybe he had like a coccyx, something for the coccyx, like a little tailbone protector. Didn't have much though, because remember, Nick's character wore a goddamn cut-off T-shirt in the movie. It wasn't many opportunities for padding. So Nick's scene, he's about to fall off the roof. I've got 3 cameras on it. We only had 2 cameras, but I even positioned another camera and got it ready for this. We set them all. We had them ready to go. Nick checked frame. I checked frame. I thought we all thought we had the right frames. We did the stunt. Nick falls. Let me tell you, this happened so fucking fast. It's true what they say about like, the free fall speed. It's just an incredible thing. He fell and he just went through those boxes like, we thought it was going to be like, no, it was just like, right through the fucking boxes, and they all kind of like this cube that we had just kind of split in the middle. And there he was, like, and let me tell you, he almost missed, like, if this is the roof top of, and he's falling like this, he almost fell too far, and his back would have completely missed the boxes. His feet would have hit the boxes, and I'm pretty sure he would have died. But luckily, he hit the middle, kind of hit like just the back of the middle, so it hit him properly. But he went down so fast. I remember boxes are fucking everywhere, and I just sprinted to him as fast as I could. And I didn't know what I was gonna find. You know what I mean? It was one of those things where like,
is your friend dead or something?
Yeah, like what the fuck did I do? It's a goddamn movie.
Right.
And he just like opened his eyes up. And he's like, he couldn't really talk because the air was knocked out of him, but he gave a thumbs up and he's like, I'm good. And we were like, thank God he wasn't spitting up blood. He wasn't coughing or anything. We slowly helped him up. He stood up. He was good. Everybody's fucking cheering for him. It was the coolest fucking thing ever. Really sad little moment in time. It's too bad this wasn't today, because if this were today, this would have been on everyone's fucking story. This would have been on like, this would have been covered on like 25, 30 different angles, because, like, we're going back 10 years ago, man. Like, people, yeah, we had camera phones, but they were shit. If you remember, the first iPhones, they just weren't there, and whatever. It was a good old fashioned applause. Everyone loved it. It was 3 cheers for Nick. Let's check playback, right?
Boy. Yeah.
We go to check the playback, and although Nick was covered, there wasn't anything damaged with it. It's not like the footage didn't like take or work or whatever, but we watched it, and in the angle that we chose, and you'll see it in the film. Fuck, man, Nick could have been falling off of my deck 2 feet. He didn't need to fall off the whole roof. Like, we didn't film it in a wide enough, low enough angle. I just wasn't there. That's what it is. Like, I wasn't there as a filmmaker. I didn't have it yet.
Yeah.
I didn't, and I'm not trying to, like, it wasn't all me. There were other people involved. Like, yeah, Sam probably could have moved the camera. Nick is partially involved, because Nick checked frame, was like, yeah, that should be good. But we were all so hung up on Nick not dying and like surviving the stunt that the shot itself became secondary, and it wasn't framed up right. And we never got that dramatic free fall angle that we wanted to show. No, this isn't bullshit. He really flew off the fucking roof, and we just never got it. And I remember Nick seeing it and being like, he didn't cuss, he didn't yell at us, but he was like genuinely disappointed, because it's like, man, I could have like died, and we didn't even get like the fucking right shot to really like show off the glory of this fucking stunt I just did. So, hey, in the words of Michael Jordan, I don't lose, I learn, right? So it's one of those things where now I know that if I'm ever doing any kind of major stunt, we test it. We would, obviously you couldn't test that out. There wasn't the kind of thing we could do with a body double, but we could have rolled on it. We could have seen what the angle looks like. We could have like readjusted. We could have done more. It's as simple as that. We could have done more. It's one of those moments where like we just knew like I fucked it up. And at the end of the day, you know what I've learned too?
What's
And
that?
that night I probably didn't learn this, but you know whose fault it was really? It was my fault.
Right.
It wasn't Sam's fault. It wasn't Nick's fault. Because at the end of the day, it's your job as the director to have your fucking eyes on the monitor and make sure that that shit's pointed where it's supposed to be pointed. And I didn't do that, and I fucked up.
Director's medium. The buck stops here.
Yeah, don't point the finger at anybody else. Your ego might make you want to do that, but at the end of the
Right.
day, it's your fucking fault, and you got to own up to it. So this is me 9 years later, publicly owning up to fucking up that shot. Nick, I'm sorry. Maybe we'll do it again someday.
Well, Nick,
Hopefully, it'll be safer.
Nick's come through for you. And as a matter of fact, October of 2020, Nick was my stunt double for your movie, or Dan Hunter's movie, The Mick and the Trick. And Nick took a
Well, let's
pretty
not give away
nice
any
bump or
spoilers.
something.
But
Okay.
he did. He did something really cool. That movie's going to be coming out sometime in the not too distant future. But yes, Mike is absolutely right. Nick did something really cool in that movie and doubled Mike nicely and did a cool stunt. And like I said, man, to this day, Nick's one of my best friends on the
It's a
planet,
solid
closest
cat.
closest allies. And how about this? Nick's a talented writer. Nick and I co-wrote Johnny and Clyde together.
Nice.
So, you know, uh, let's put it this way: Nick got over it. He didn't hold it
Yeah,
against
yeah.
me that I fucked the shot up. But lots of teachable moments, and this really was a trial by film fire, and I learned a lot. And I think that at the end of the day, fans enjoyed this film for its kind of old school flair and the fact that it did rely heavily on good old fashioned practical effects, and that there's a lot of appeal to a lot of different people that could find what they liked about this movie, whether it was the Baywatch fan or the Joey Fatone fan or the Godsmack fan or the good old fashioned horror fan or the wrestling fan, or the Candyman fan. Um, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. I love working with these wrestlers. We got a Hummer from the city of Johnston. Shout out,
Mm.
we got a Humvee, I should say. That kind of sounded a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
funny. But we got an official like military surplus Humvee,
Yes.
to be like our big police wagon, which was badass. We did a lot with a real little on this movie, and I'm proud of it. This was definitely one of those movies when I first saw it after production. I knew it wasn't going to be the kind of movie to change anyone's life, but I felt as though we had made a nice, entertaining film that people in the genre would kind of dig.
I see it kind of as an origin story for your career. And, you couple this one with self storage. And then I believe Almost Mercy came after this one. Is that correct?
Yeah, after this one, I made Almost Mercy, which I feel as though is the movie where I finally I got all the bullshit out of my system,
Yeah.
and I really realized like, all right, man, like you want to really make movies, like you better get a little more serious about this shit and maybe care a little bit less about some of the bullshit and maybe just focus on telling a great story. And maybe like from now on when you're on set, like it should just be like laser focused and not worry about like having a good time, if
There
that
does
makes
seem
sense.
to be a larger incremental jump in care, or I don't want to, I'm not trying to think of what the word is, production value or story, really, from Almost Mercy. Like it's kind of like self storage is here, and then this one, Army of the Dam, is a little bit up, but then there's like a bigger increase in gamesmanship with Almost Mercy, I would say.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a lot of reasons as to why that's the case when we do our Almost Mercy episode a little bit later this summer. But yeah, Almost Mercy came next. But this was Army of the Damned. Like I said, had a pretty good run with the horror fans. I think it's one of those movies that, people will kind of go back at some point. Maybe it's the Zelina Vega fans, maybe it's the Godsmack fans. I think they'll dust this one off and they'll say, "Oh, it was a fun time." At the
It's
end of
had
the
some
day, movies.
favorable reviews online. I've looked into it, and some people really like the fun party aspect. Tommy, I didn't want to cut you off, but I want you to check out the comments because we do have but Stephen E checked in.
Yes,
Thank
Mike,
you, Stephen E.
handle comments with me. I'm gonna pop them up and you run them through.
Sure. Stephen E said this at the beginning of the show. Hello, Tommy and Mike. Can't wait. Enjoyed the show. Stephen E was kind of just checking everything out. He was talking about checking out the movie. Our friend Kim Kaling says she loves the story. They sound like great parents. Kim's actually a fan of Young Rock, believe it or not, Tommy. We were talking about The Rock earlier, and Kim actually told me which episode of Young Rock to watch. Season 2, episode 8.
Well, Kim is going to like Johnny and Clyde because Brett Azar, who plays the Iron Sheik in the Young Rock, has a nice part in Johnny and Clyde.
Yeah. Stephen E again. Jeff, hi, hey
My
guys.
friend
What's up,
Jeff, Mike, you'll appreciate this. Jeff and I, at one time, I didn't meet him there, but we both watched a wrestling event at the good old-fashioned Lowell Civic Center in Lowell, Massachusetts. That is a great classic building right there. A lot of great wrestling matches over the years have taken place in there. Stephen here's reminding us of the Candyman. Is Candyman good? I feel like, Mike, should we show him one more time? There he is. There he is. 3 times. Figure. Don't say it. Candyman. Yeah. Jeff is just kind of bolstering the fact that big fan of Nick Principe. And if you know Nick as a person too, he's just a lovable guy. And then my man Sal, let's shoot the rehearsal. Sal was talking about, we had mentioned earlier how like in film we just rehearsal. We hardly ever do that. And that's a famous line that you'll hear sometimes directors, sometimes you'll hear an assistant director say it, but like, okay, we're gonna shoot the rehearsal. Great, let's shoot the rehearsal. And what that really means is we're running out of time. Let's just keep it rolling. But that could also mean, hey, we might get something great, natural, fun, free in the rehearsal. Let's not waste it. Let's fucking shoot it. So I'm actually with shooting the rehearsal, but
one of my horror stories is I have a horror story. A horror story that an actress and I did a great rehearsal take, and the director did not shoot the rehearsal, and we did like some of the best acting either one of us had ever done. And it's, why didn't you shoot the rehearsal? Why didn't you shoot the rehearsal?
We didn't have live ammo on that one. Hey, my man Ryan Sweeney, who is a longtime collaborator, he's actually running camera. He's up in the B cam on Junction right now. And yes, working when the rest of the world is asleep is the motto of Ryan Sweeney. And we love the fact that I gotta say this guy has a motor on him. Like,
yeah,
I've never really seen him tired. Like Ryan can just like, we worked on a movie all night long, and it'll be like 7 in the morning, and be like, let's go. What are we doing? And it's just like, how are you alive right now? Ms. Ash, how are you? We do like to party at 7 a.m. sometimes, but you know what? 7 a.m. to us, it was just like, it's just an after work drink. Some people want some breakfast. That's the other thing about like when you're working at those times, like rarely will you want to eat like a pizza at 7 a.m. But like when you worked all night, it's like, yeah, you'll eat a burger at, you're like, McDonald's is doing, you're actually the guy who's at McDonald's being like, you guys not doing breakfast?
Yeah.
And they're like, wait a minute, we're not used to this.
Right.
Steven, wow. Miss Ash, spoilers. Yes, there's gonna be spoilers on this show. Kim,
she was talking about the Rock, the Young Rock.
Talking Young Rock.
Yeah.
And that's all the comments we have for this week. Also, anybody who's watching along, anybody at any time can go on, even if you don't watch it live, if you drop down a question in the comments, any film related question at all, Mike and I will be happy to answer it for you on the next show to the best of our abilities. So don't be shy. Listen, I really mean this. I'm not even kidding. Like, there's no such thing as a stupid question. All this shit's not like, this isn't shit that you just should know. So if you have a movie question, whether you're just getting into the game or if you've been a veteran for a long time and you're like, I'm kind of embarrassed to ask that, but I hear it all the time. What the fuck does that mean? Drop a question and we'll answer it for you. And also, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I wanted to mention, Tommy, that right before we went on the show tonight, I got a nice email that my film script, Fighter Play Basketball, was named a quarterfinalist in the Emerging Screenwriters contest from ISA. Thank you.
All right. Congratulations,
course,
brother.
The book version is also available on Amazon, which is in easy-to-read novel format. So I'm happy about that. And then, Tommy, you are working on a movie this week, which is very exciting. Our friend David Gear is looking for more people for that movie, and that's a very exciting project. And more
Absolutely,
episodes to come.
That's a good point, Mike. Hey, anybody who's watching this, if you want to get a chance to be a background actor, and you're on Facebook, take a look at David Gear. David Gear, Gere. He is currently casting all kind of types. There's a lot of different kind of really cool background roles. Some of them are very featured. And you know what? You just never know what you might be right for until you give a shot and try. And all you got to do is, obviously, we're in the world of 2022 in this kind of pandemic world. You just got to go and get yourself a PCR test. It's real easy to do. You can literally like sign up for, it takes 5 minutes. You go into CVS. Don't be afraid, because I had to get one. I got to get one all the time to be on set. It's not the kind of deal where they jam it up your nose. You do it yourself. It's just like, listen, it's literally like you take a Q-tip and you check, you swab your nose and you put it in the little thing and you give it back to them. Very easy to do. Don't be afraid of the PCR test. Just take it from me. Don't go up to the lady at the counter and ask for the PCP test, because that's what I did. And she was like, "What? PCP?" I was like, and she was like, "I think you mean PCR." I was like, "Yes, PCR." So either way,
does that sound for? Yeah, PCR test. Okay.
Either way, just if you want to get into this movie, it's a lot of fun to be on set and you get a chance to kind of like, all about,
We might be running low on. We might be running low on.
My batteries went on the old headphones. I think that's a sign that we better wrap this one up, Mike. But folks, I just wanted you to know that it was great to have you. Thanks for listening to my stories about Army of the Damned. Rest in peace, Billy V. I'd like to dedicate this episode to the memory of Billy V. We know that you're watching down and fondly reliving these moments with us. I know that Billy was really excited to be a part of this movie, and he told me that scene in the basement that you mentioned, Mike, was one of his. Honestly, he said that was one of his favorite times ever on a movie set. So we miss you, Billy. And if you want to check out more info on me, you can follow me at Tom DiNucci. That's TOMDEN as in Nancy, UCCI. You can find me. Actually, you know what? It's spelled out right in my name. You can see it, Tom DiNucci.
Hey, folks, this is Mike. I lost Tommy here for a moment. Hopefully he'll
come
back. There he is. I thought I could take over the show for a minute. God damn.
Mike tried to infiltrate the whole program. See how quickly he just took over? Right here. That's me, Tom DiNucci. Right, there we go. Back. Tom DiNucci, at Tom DiNucci, for Twitter, for Instagram, social media of all kinds. You'll find me.
You are an Instagram guy. You've kind of taught me some of the ropes of Instagram.
I love Instagram. I don't know. It gives me something to do. But also the big thing that we're trying to push right now is this YouTube channel. So if you enjoy the show, please tell your fellow film friends about this channel. Have them subscribe. It's one thing to watch the show, and we do appreciate the views, but it's really all about hitting that subscribe button. That's what gives us more opportunity to expand the platform here. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button. And if you haven't seen it already, check out Army of the Damned. We'll be back next Tuesday with a fun mystery topic coming at you next Tuesday. See you soon.
See you guys.